major governance issues the country should be concerned about?
Like Jermaine Barrett and Damien Mitchell, I concur, and I would imagine well-thinking Jamaicans associate with those observations as well, that Dennis Gordon registers among us as someone who is stone deaf. He is muddying the waters. He's exhibiting no contrition, no penitence, and that is particularly unfortunate in this instance, as I have observed elsewhere, Dion, when you consider the aggregate, the totality of the matters before us. To commence with, you have this damning finding by the Auditor General, then you have the passage of time, the Dennis Gordon apparent playing for time, knowing full well once that report dropped in January that his company would have been one of the companies concerned, and for him to have only paid the duties owed the day before the PAC meeting is quite unfortunate, and it suggests, when you consider as well him having instructed counsel to write to media houses that had named this company back in February, early February, the entirety of this matter is just particularly damning, and it suggests that this person really has to reconsider his position as a lawmaker.
Okay, let's go to the break. We'll come back in just a minute.
I think there might be some new information regarding the Auditor General's report. And based on those reports and what was tabled in the Parliament, we may have to bring back ask a member to return to the committee. Just looking at what is before us and what has been revealed in some information that we received from the PAC meeting.
My issue though is that if permission was granted for the member to be exempted by his company, can we retroactively go back on that? I'm not sure.
Just for summary, the accuracy of the information provided by the member in question as recorded in the minutes has been called into question in light of subsequent publication in the public domain, and the member is therefore being asked to return to the committee to provide clarification on the answers.
Okay, they're actually members of the Ethics Committee, not the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. So it was the Ethics Committee of Parliament that met, and they've decided to re-summon MP Dennis Gordon to answer more questions about the University Hospital of the West Indies issue. And Damien, let me come back to you. Do you think this is appropriate? Parliament looking at it, the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, no doubt will continue to look at it. We've heard that investigations are going on. Customs is investigating, I believe, the Integrity Commission as well. I'm not sure if other investigations going on as well. So do we now just sit, Mocha, thanks so much, Damien. Do we now just sit down, do we sit and wait for those investigations, or are there additional actions you want to see taken in the meantime?
Well, I'd want to see some additional actions taken, but just in terms of where we go from here, we note that competent authorities are undertaking their probe, as you underscored just now. And in terms of the PAC, to the extent that Dennis Gordon, by way of his expose in the Sunday Observer, made mention of this practice going on for umpteen years, 20 years, I believe is what he cited, we would want to see some more responses from the university authorities in relation to what that entails, what has been happening there based on what Dennis asserted.
And just to be clear, if those probes or if such revelations are made and they turn up involvement of JLP members of Parliament, what would we expect to hear from
the
you?
chips in all matters, and that's a position of mine, that's a principled position on which I stand there, and the chips in respect of matters of accountability and probity, particularly in public life, ought to fall where they may. And the truth of the matter is that the people of Jamaica are looking on. We're speaking about taxpayers' money in these matters, and what it means is that for every cent that is diverted from the public purse and not used, essentially not used for intended purpose, or as I said before, diverted from the public purse, means that another stretch of roadway that could have been attended to goes unattended. But to come back to this germane point here, in that Sunday Observer expose from Dennis Gordon, he sought to give a particular account of events that went on. He said items were landed in Jamaica, and having regard to a challenge that his entity upon he thought the facilitation of the UHWI. I'm in possession of an invoice that has been making the rounds on social media, which lists the UHWI as the importer of these items. Now, the question is, if these items had been landed in Jamaica and then the UHWI was engaged for facilitation, how come, Dennis Gordon, the invoice is in the UHWI's name with, of course, his entity just up the road from here on Lyndhurst Road being the address to which the items would have been shipped, basically 18 3/4 Lyndhurst Road. Those two things simply do not compute. They do not make sense. And it is very evident that a tangled web is being weaved because entities and persons here are seeking at first to deceive.
So you're saying the hospital now needs to come clean, go back into its records and publish, you're saying, a list of what has happened over the past?
So, in other words, to the extent that Dennis Gordon has alleged and asserted that this whole facilitation has been happening for at least 20 years, the acting CEO of the UHWI should have certain questions put to him in respect of Parliament's PAC when they meet next Tuesday. But separate and apart from that, what I'm saying is that, and I'm sure the respective investigative bodies will take it into account, this invoice that I have here that lists no fewer than 40 odd items, which include office furniture and the dialysis machines that Dennis Gordon has made mention of. It cannot be that his entity brought them into Jamaica, yet the invoice from the vendor is indicating that the items were billed to the UHWI and were indeed shipped to the UHWI, albeit with 18 3/4 Lyndhurst Road being the germane address here. What this is indicative of, Dion, on the face of it, is that there's a degree of premeditated, perhaps, and deliberate intent to mislead. And of course, we know that a false customs declaration is something that is prohibited, and that is where the criminal element may come into play here. But that is not a determination for you and I to make. It is for the investigative bodies to find, and of course, a tribunal of fact ultimately to make a determination on. So we're not being premature and hasty in the way that the opposition leader has sought to be premature and hasty by concluding that nothing that he has
you're not
been
being
made available.
premature, even though you suggested a conclusion, though.
Well, I am simply indicating that on the face of this, what is indicative as far as I'm concerned is that it appears that there's a degree of...
So you're saying it needs to be explained?
Precisely. It needs to be explained, and investigative authorities would certainly have to concern themselves with this literature before us.
Just about
I know you're almost at the time, Dion.
30 seconds.
Yes, I know you're almost at the time, but there's this very big issue which is affecting me, and that is, how is it that in this matter of the importation, there could